What is going on? It's Crime Time Podcast, back with an update into Menendez mania, as I've been calling it. Menendez brothers news updates, sweeping the news cycle on a daily basis. Documentaries, streaming services, just pushing out Menendez content nonstop. So of course, it's no different here in the blogosphere. And their court date is, I believe, just a few weeks away. I think they're going to walk. I think the sentence will be reduced and they will come home, but will be on parole for the rest of their life. That's my prediction. Let me know yours. But we've seen a lot of people weigh in on this with their opinions, from legal analysts to many other people from back in the day to currently. We actually saw a very well-known, well-documented rapper who did a lot of time for a homicide, which he still to this day maintains that he is innocent. Recently hit the news about the Menendez brothers doing time with both of them, having a great deal of respect for both of them, and actually crediting them with helping him come home with this law. I forget the name of it, 280 or 260 or something like that, that would actually be able to help the Menendez brothers. It's a law that if you commit a homicide at a very young age, like a youthful offender status age, after a certain time period, or I forget exactly how it goes, but your sentence can be modified and changed. The only reason, and that's how that rapper was able to come home, and Menendez brothers helped him out immensely. Again, he talked about this in depth. Comment if you're intrigued to hear a video about that. But that law doesn't apply if you have a life sentence on the end of your bid, which the Menendez brothers do. But I still believe that they're going to come home. But now we're hearing from someone else who personally interacted with them and knew them, or at least one of the two brothers, pretty well. An old classmate who actually is now an attorney.
I went to Calabasas High School with Eric Menendez. Eric was extremely bright, but he was also very arrogant and cocky and a bit conceited, but he was extremely, extremely bright. This was so brutal. His mother's face had been shot off, and the idea that someone that we knew would do that to their own parents was really shocking to the conscience. And it did make us think, well, is it just because the father was so mean to them? Was it just over the money, or was there something more? Before I knew that Eric and his brother were responsible for the murders, I actually met with him and a group of friends to console him. During that meeting, I was struck by the lack of sadness. I remember when I heard that the defense was going to be they had been sexually assaulted. I was surprised by it, but I do remember saying something was horribly wrong in that family.
So that is Allison Treasel. Maiden name was Bloom. So back then she was known as Allison Bloom. And like I said, she went to school. What was it? Calabasas High. You heard her talking about it. And she was in a study group with one of the brothers. And she spoke about the father just being, like scary, basically, intimidating. Like he would intimidate the brothers, and would get all fired up and bugged out in public situations. So she felt like, what could be going on behind closed doors if this guy with this horrific temper, who just is on some bullshit, basically, like something ain't right about him. Look what he'll do in public. What could he be doing behind closed doors? As you heard her talk about, before there was any thought of the brothers being responsible for the deaths of the parents, Jose and Kitty, she went and met with him, with other people, to console him, and just was struck immediately by, like, hey, something is not right. And she went home and spoke to her own father, who is a psychologist, and I guess he conveyed to her, hey, some people process grief differently, which is very true. I mean, we're human beings, right? We're all wired different emotionally. It's what makes people so different, right? Like such we are the most complex beings on this planet, different emotions, different lifestyles, etc. And her dad was just hitting her with like, it's just processing grief. It's a crazy thing that happened, and everyone has their own process. But she insisted, no, there was just this lack of sadness. Something wasn't right. And then later found out about the arrests and the fact that they had admitted to committing the crimes. And, when the case came around to court and she found out that the defense was that not only was the father like crazy and had a ludicrous temper and, intimidated everyone around and his sons and everything, that they were alleging that he was a sick creep who was violating his own kids. She spoke out in this interview and said his lawyer, this is Eric, that's the one that she knew better, Leslie Abramson, had a good, and again, she is now an attorney herself, this former classmate of Eric Menendez. His lawyer, Leslie Abramson, had a good reputation, but it was one of being fierce like a lioness and controversial. This woman, Treasel, now a criminal defense attorney, said, I remember when I heard while I was in college that the defense was going to be that they had been actually assaulted. I was surprised by it. I did not have the impression that he had been actually assaulted by his parents. But again, there's the quote of her saying something was horribly wrong in that family, that she could just feel it. And just, again, the interactions she saw and the temper that the father had. And once again, you see something in public. I mean, that's just only natural to think, man, what a psycho. You know what I mean? If he's acting like that now, what is he doing when no one's around? This guy's insane. She said, I was never in that bedroom. I can't tell you whether or not they were violated, but I do remember saying something was horribly wrong in that family. Kitty Menendez was always very quiet. She didn't say very much. And that kind of coincides with, and everyone share your thoughts about this case if you believe they're going to walk, if you've been following the case from way back or whatever. But that kind of coincides with some of the stuff that we've heard about the mom, that she just let things happen, that she just sat back quiet, didn't stick up for her sons. You know what I mean? That she would be complicit in the abuse by not doing anything, by not speaking up. However, she pointed out it was a different time. And back then, the issue of that kind of abuse, particularly involving boys, wasn't openly discussed or seen as a likely explanation. And that's something regarding this case and other cases that we've seen, be looked back into, or they reopen investigations, or whatever the case may be. That's the power that we're seeing of the internet, of true crime documentaries and such. People always point out negative things about the internet, trolling and stuff like that, but we've seen criminal cases be opened back up based on documentaries, internet, people unveiling and uncovering new evidence, which, once again, if you have not seen in this case, there is a member of Menudo who was a boy band that Ricky Martin was in, and one of the members, I think his name is Roy Rosselli, I could be pronouncing it wrong, or that's not even his name. There's a whole documentary out there on it. He actually said that the father violated him, I think, when he was 14 years old, and he went on the record and got like a deposition, or got something notarized to make it official. And I believe that's being looked at as new evidence in this case, as well as they found an old letter that one of the Menendez brothers wrote to a cousin or something like that, that's from way back, where he was speaking of the abuse as well. And like she was saying, this was a different time. That kind of stuff wasn't openly spoke about, with cases being looked back into. I've often heard, courts or representatives of the court speak about that and say, we want to look at cases on a modern day level. If this case was tried today, how would we look at this case? And again, I just think this is another reason why they are going to walk. There's people that say that this whole abuse defense, there's a lot of people that say they believe it's some cooked up thing by a defense attorney. Let me know what you think, if you believe it to be true or not. I believe it's true. Why would this guy from Menudo, all these years later, who, from my understanding, hasn't pursued the limelight or anything like that, what would make him come out and speak out about this? And there's a lot of other stuff in that documentary, man. Like, the dad really seems like he was a weirdo, and then there's people that argue and say, well, even if that was the case, that doesn't make it okay for them to do what they did. And whether you want to look at that from the aspect if that could be, grounds for self-defense or not, which I personally think it could be. When someone has horrific things done like that to them by a wicked demon, is what I call the sick abusers that violate people and violate kids. It's the most disgusting-ish. They're the most lowest of the low, just demons. They put evil into the atmosphere and into society. It just does so much damage to individuals. And I can definitely, if this is indeed true, see someone having, go through that kind of horrific abuse and have a mind state like, I gotta protect myself. I think they're going to kill me. You know what I mean? And even if you don't think that that's the case, that it could be grounds for self-defense, it definitely should be grounds for their sentence to be modified and for them to walk free, and for, it's just crazy, man. Again, everyone, let me know what you think about this case. And then a former Manhattan prosecutor named Deborah Turkenheimer, an author of Credible, told Newsweek that boys who are victims of this kind of abuse and assault face additional challenge because such cases are less common and often less acknowledged, with these difficulties being even greater decades ago. So again, this is just a different time, and this is a good thing that they're reopening this case. And again, I believe they should and will walk free on parole. It's not like they, there's people out here acting like if they're released on parole, it's the most horrific thing or something, like they got a slap on the wrist. They're old men now, right? In their 50s. They've been in jail for decades. So I don't know. Again, let me know what you think about it all. Subscribe to the channel. This is a Crime Time podcast. True crime updates, subscribe, stay tuned, let me know your thoughts. There's also a quote here: when victims don't behave or look like we expect them to behave or look, we tend to find them not credible, and boys don't really fit into the popular understanding of who's a victim of abuse. That's what the author said. So it's just a different time, man, and in this case needs to be looked back into. And will they walk? I believe the court date is, I think, November 24th or something like that. I'm not positive, but we'll have to wait and see what will happen on that fateful day for the Menendez brothers. Will they walk free? Will all of this attention that the case has had change their lives on that level where they will get a shot at freedom? And what will they do with it? That's a question a lot of people have asked as well. Will they do things to try to help out other people with similar cases as them? Like, what will their life be like? But there you have it. We've heard many people speak out, and that is a classmate speaking out in regards to this case. So thank you for watching. Let's talk in the comments. Catch you on the next video. Subscribe, and I'm out of here.